Welcome everyone to this June 11th webinar. We are going to be talking about finalizing your back to school online registration. And as I'm sure you have figured out from this conversation, you are joined today with me and Paul Freed. My name is Rachel Cox. I am on the support to training team here at JMC. I've been with JMC for a little over 2 years, and I'm coming with about 15 years of education experience. I taught college writing classes for over a decade, and then I spent a few years as an administrator in a pre-K through 6 Catholic school. And like I said, I'm joined by Paul. Paul, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yep, I'll keep it brief. I'm Paul Freed. Been with JMC since the early 2000s. Love training schools, love doing webinars, love visiting schools. So I also am very much a big fan of the online summer re-registration process. So I'm excited to share some wisdom today.
Great. Yeah, me too. I used this at my school and I am a big fan. All right, so we're going to talk about getting ready to launch today. As you prepare to launch online registration, it's time to add the finishing touches to ensure a smooth experience for both families and staff. In today's session, we'll walk through what families will see during registration, how to monitor submissions using the progress dashboard, and tips for timing your rollout. We'll also revisit your district messaging for clarity and consistency and discuss how to align your administrative team for a successful registration season.
Yeah, I think, I was just saying, Rachel, the key to this webinar, people are wondering, like, well, what's this different from the other one? This is where we bring the wisdom, right? In a nutshell, we've been doing this for a long time. I think I've been helping schools for 10 years. You've been at your school. It's the wisdom of how do we make sure this is a successful rollout. And as Rachel was going to say, please hold all of your questions until the Q&A session at the end of each section. If you need to communicate with myself or Rachel, feel free to use the Q&A chat feature in your webinar toolbar. I will be monitoring that, and I will address those questions as they come in.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So we'll start by talking about collecting the details that matter most. Setting up the right custom and health questions along with signable forms helps your team gather everything you need up front without follow-up calls or paper chasing. By tailoring your registration process to your school's needs, you can collect accurate student and contact information, medical details, and signed permissions all in one place. This streamlined approach reduces back and forth with families and gives staff easy access to the information they need to support students from day one. So like Paul said, it's a little bit different setup for today's webinar. So we're going to get into some of the best practices for collecting back to school information. So Paul, I got a question for you. What do I do with all the paper forms I usually hand out in my registration packet?
All right. And the next slide then is replace your paper forms by turning key questions into custom fields or health questions. Now, I want to address a few things here that are best practice. Number one, I always tell folks, they're like, well, how can I get rid of 100% of our paper forms for 100% of our families? That is not an appropriate goal. Your goal is to get rid of 95% of your paper forms for 95% of your families, because some families, maybe their English is a second language, maybe they don't have a computer at home, whatever it might be. They just are not going to be able to do it online. So don't gear things for those folks. Gear things for your 95% of folks that can self-serve themselves. That's number one. Number two, take those paper forms and whatever you have that people are doing signatures for, usually, not always, you can have it as a custom field question or a health question. And so you can turn, especially those yes/no questions. And why do we prefer yes/no questions? Because you can easily query them with student lists. So the one thing, and I'll talk about this a little bit as we get especially to health questions, is we do encourage folks to say, take all those questions you had on paper, take all those things of like, sign here if you've read and agreed to the student handbook. Well, first of all, nobody reads the whole student handbook, and they don't even know if they agree to everything in the handbook, but they have to at least say, I agree to it. Turn to a yes/no question. Do you agree to everything in the student handbook? Yes, no. Do a query. Those that said no, reach out to them and ask them why they said no. 99% of folks are going to say yes. So we'll talk about some of the specifics as we move forward.
Yeah, and I'll just show really quick here an image of what those custom field questions look like when you're setting up your online registration. The custom field questions in JMC online registration give your school the flexibility to gather the exact information you need from families, like Paul was just saying, and it's easily queryable. Whether you're asking about technology needs, transportation preferences, or household details, these tailored questions let you collect responses in a structured, reportable way. By replacing paper forms with streamlined digital questions, you'll reduce manual data entry and ensure your team has consistent, organized info right from the start. And one more thing that I really liked about these custom questions was that if I was getting back, 10 pieces of paper per student in the school, if I needed to look up the information on one of those pieces of paper, like I would have to go through the filing cabinets, find the right one, yada, yada, yada. It's not really useful information. Whereas if we're putting those questions here in custom fields, I can look those answers up right in my JMC database and get that information immediately. I'm more likely to use the information if I can access it more easily.
Yep.
All right. Question number 2, Paul. What health data should I be collecting at the beginning of the school year?
Answer is collaborate with your school nurse or key health staff to see what information is essential to ensure all students are safe and healthy throughout the year. Now, this is probably the first key takeaway that I want folks to hear that are on this webinar. And that is the one problem when you take paper copies and you make them into digital copies is that you're not critically thinking about the information that we want. So one thing that's beautiful about custom fields and health custom fields is that you can and should make it so that the answers that the families put in this year or last year carry over to the current year. So they don't have to re-answer every single question. So I see a lot of health questions where people are asking, does your student have blood pressure problems? Do they have diabetes? That whole long list. And you can do that. I don't have a problem with that. A lot of school nurses want to know. But the only problem I think with that is that a lot of families just go through and check no, 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 no. Just like when I go to the doctor and there's a long list there and they're all check boxes, I'm just going through it. No, no, no. I'm not necessarily thinking critically about it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to do, but it's just one thing to consider. What I do want people to consider, and this is the nugget I want you to take away, is what do you really want? Because that paper copy that you're looking at from the nurse in particular, but also any other place, is probably something where people have just been adding on year after year after year for the last 20 years. What do we want to know? And so what I encourage schools to do, and I get a lot of positive feedback, is the first question should be, and some people have moved to only this question, what do you want us to know about this student's physical and mental health this year? Because that's what we really want to know. So I hope this is an aha moment for some schools, like saying, what do we really want to know? I mean, do most kids have blood pressure problems? Do most kids have diabetes? Most kids don't. And you probably already know who those kids are. And you probably have collected that information when they were kindergarten, first or second grade, or when they came to your school. The real thing that people want to know in schools, not just the school nurse, but everybody, is what do you want us to know about your student's mental and physical health this year? And of course, there are other questions too. Is your student taking a medication? We've got that great little box in there to do that. And another thing. So I'm not saying you only need one question, but where I think it gets hard, Rachel, is when you ask, and I've seen this, 50 health questions, families tend to weigh them all the same, and they're trying to get through them as soon as possible. If you only have 2 or 3 or 4 questions, what medications does your student take? What do you want us to know about your student's physical health? What do you want us to know about your mental health? I think parents and guardians take a little more time to answer those questions. So I just ask folks at this point of the presentation, to step back and look at your custom fields, look at your health custom field, say, what do we really want to know? You're in charge. You're the boss. And sometimes more is less, right? More questions mean less thoughtfulness because parents are trying to get through it. Where if you keep it simplified and sometimes allow for a comment box, it can be helpful in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for adding that, Paul. And I think that at our school, we asked 2 questions. And I'm guessing that I had heard that from you, because I think that first question that you talked about was the one that we would ask. Is there anything you'd like us to know about your students' physical or mental health? And then the next question was just, is your student taking any medications? And I did work with our school nurse on setting up those questions, because she was going to have to reach out to the parents anyway to get medical authorization and everything. So she's like, well, I don't need them to list it all here, because they're going to have to list it on the medical authorization form. That does need to be signed for me to administer meds. So sometimes we think, oh, we need to know all of these pieces right up front. But a lot of these conditions or medications and stuff are things that a school nurse or health professional needs to follow up with families. So instead of having them enter information in multiple places, simplify the process here and then do that reaching out like you would need to. And like Paul said, it's not the majority of students, it's the minority.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
All right.
absolutely.
So here's that question Paul's talking about. What would you like us to know about your students' physical or mental health for the upcoming school year? Just keeping things easy, keeping it streamlined so that parents aren't overwhelmed. But I'll kind of walk through this here. The custom health fields in JMC's online registration help you gather important medical details before the school year begins, whether it's allergy information, medication needs, or emergency care preferences. You can tailor questions to match your school's requirements. Collecting this information digitally ensures staff have quick, organized access to the data they need to support student well-being from day one. And it looks like we've got a question here. While working on getting registration ready, we are able to uncheck the included and required in the custom fields. Is that correct? Yeah, that is correct. We are going to get to a live look here in just a minute. So when we get there, I can show you how to uncheck the included and the required checkboxes next to those questions. It's a good question. All right.
Keep on rolling, yeah.
Okay, Paul, question number 3. So you mentioned these forms that need a signature. What do we do about those forms that need a parent or student signature?
Great question. Turn your paper forms into digital versions by uploading them as signable forms in JMC's online registration to collect everything electronically. And I'll make this really straightforward. Again, I've worked with so many schools. If they absolutely need a signature, for sure, upload it, have them sign it. You can have parents sign them or guardians, and you can have students sign them. And I want to say something about that in a moment. But if you don't really need a signature, you just need confirmation. I would turn it into a yes/no question because it's easier for families to answer. So just asking that question, do we really need a signature, or are we just doing this because in the past people would sign pieces of paper and bring them in? And that's because signatures take longer for parents to enter. Yes/no questions do not. And again, it's easier to query a yes/no question than a signature as well. So again, just a lot of schools have moved from requiring 10 signatures to 0 to 1 or 2. And I think as an aside, I tell folks now, I don't sign anything anymore. Even for my bank, if I want to get a loan or whatever, I go in, they send me something, I check a box, and it says put signature there. It's not even my signature, right? It's filling in just a different type of a font there. So I think culturally we're moving away from signatures. Not that things don't require signatures. There are some things that do, but I think that just the important thing, it's harder for parents to sign something. Now, if they do require a signature from parents and students, I had a school help me out with this 2 years ago. They said they'll turn on the signature for the parents over the summer. And then when school starts, September 2nd or August 15th, whatever it is, they'll turn on for students, and they'll have students going to the computer lab during homeroom or something like that, or if they're a one-to-one school, and have them sign them at that time. So that was just a little tip that somebody gave me to say, like, hey, what they were having is they were putting it on, and then parents were signing for the students. Again, it goes back to my question of does it really need a signature or not? But if students do need to sign, I would wait to turn on the student signature until school starts and then just collect it then. Just a thought for folks.
And here's an image of where you set up those signable forms, where you select the particular form, who it goes out to, whether you're collecting contact signatures and student signatures and so on. And again, we'll take a live look here. But we just want to mention that signable forms in JMC's online registration let families review and sign important documents like technology agreements, field trip waivers, or handbook acknowledgements. No more chasing down papers or tracking manual signatures. This digital process keeps everything organized in one place, saving staff time and ensuring families complete required permissions before the first day of school. And I think along with what Paul was saying there is like, it's really just an acknowledgement, right? That signature is acknowledging that you went to the document, you looked at what was there, and you've read it. But I think that takes us to our live look. So we'll get into JMC here and show you where you complete some of these pieces. So we'll start with
and Rachel, can I jump in and say, like, I don't, like you said before, we have videos. Maybe you could go, you want to run to the YouTube channel real quick? Cause I want to talk about something and then we can, you can show it. There's that, on our YouTube channel, we have 2 other videos on how to set everything up start to finish. So if you've never done online registration, you want to watch Rolling into Online Registration, and the back to school online registration work session. So those two are going to be, those are the invaluable tools. I think, Rachel, what we want to focus on here is what are those check boxes and those things that help to streamline the process for families. So can we kind of focus on those? Does that sound good? Like per the question that came in?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay.
Yep, go ahead.
So I'll head here to JMC Family, online registration, setup, configuration options, and those custom field questions live here at the building level. So I'm going to come here to custom fields, and this is where I can turn any question. I can include it, I can require it, or neither. So that's where you can turn them on or turn them off, or turn them on for specific grade levels. So really easy. You can manage it all right here. And
Yep, and I
one
want
thing
to say that go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, one thing that I always like to promote that I think is a really great feature is that if there is a question that you don't have here yet, these quick links are super helpful. It just allows you to toggle back and forth from where you set up your questions back to the registration setup.
Absolutely. And I think, we added 2 years ago, and the custom fields can be done by grade level now, right? Nobody wants to answer questions that don't apply to their students. So first, the custom fields are done by building. So if you have an elementary building or two different elementary buildings and a middle school building and two high schools or whatever, you can ask different questions. And then within that building, you can have different grade levels as well. So for example, is your student going to drive a car to school? Rachel, is that set up correctly right now? The second question?
Absolutely not. Right, because we're not going to have preschoolers, kindergartners, first grade. I mean, really anyone under 10th grade is probably not going to be driving to school. So yes, we could turn those off because the parents don't need to ask for those students.
Absolutely. And one other kind of, I won't call it a mistake, but something people do, some people require everything. I don't know. I think again, you lose a little bit the efficacy of requirements if you require everything. So I have people to be choosy about those things a little bit there as well, but we leave that up to schools. But requiring is a powerful tool. If you really want an answer to it, then you would definitely put that as being required.
Yeah.
Great. So that's the main thing there. And then let's go to the health custom fields.
There we go. Same thing, included, required, however you want to set that up. And then again, if there's a question that you want to add, define health fields, and you can go there to set up more questions. And then you can come right back to online family setup.
Yep. And if you want to show them again, I want to point out one thing. We don't do these, the health ones, as done by grade level. It's not been requested as far as I know. And because again, the questions you're asking are going to apply for kids in that building. For a high school building, right? If you want to know that they take medications, it doesn't matter if they're a 9th or 12th grader or a kindergartner. So that's why we don't have that delineation here, as we do in the custom fields side there as well. So I think that's basically it. Do you want to run under go back to the define custom fields real quick?
Mm-hmm.
We have that cool thing now when you edit. So go ahead and edit any one. Yep. It's that year independent. You probably talked about that before, right? Year specific, year independent. Usually you want to make folks things year independent, meaning their answer carries over from one year to the next. And so that you don't have to redo that answer. And also you can click cancel there. You can, I think, is this a place where you can drag and drop the order of them? Yeah. So yep. I think that's just another thing to point out. The order you put questions in is important. Put like questions next to each other, so their minds are not bouncing from one topic to the next. And that can also, again, make it easier. So really what we're saying here is choose the questions you put out there. Make as many yes, no questions. Put them in the order that makes sense to families. Require only the ones that are required. Put signatures for things that absolutely need signatures. If they don't, make it a yes, no, and try to think about what information do we really want to collect. So I think that kind of summarizes it. Rachel, anything else you want to add?
Nope, I think that's great.
Great. So we answered that one. I think while working on getting registration ready, we are able to uncheck the including required in the custom fields. That is correct. You can do whichever you want there. Now, if you want to go back to the slides, Rachel, I will say the reason that we don't include all custom fields is because you might have custom fields about things that you track in your school, so that you don't want families to fill out. I can't think of one at the moment, but there are things that people might have related to maybe special ed, or so many people have a custom field for the student's enrollment, that they just have a custom field where they're tracking, like, did the student come from a private school or a public school or vice versa or whatever it might be. And that's a place where they can have an internally tracked custom field. And that actually was the original intent of custom fields, is for a school to internally track information. Well, then when we rolled out the summer re-registration, we thought, man, this is a great way for families to fill out the information, and then and then the school can see it as well. But again, that's why we allow you to say they are included or not included there as well. So I don't see any other questions. So should we keep on going, Rachel?
Yeah, let's go for it. All right, now we'll talk about some ways that you can set your families up for successful online registration. So one thing that we recommend is review the registration process in JMC Family. So give it a test run before opening online registration to families. It's a good idea to walk through the process in JMC Family to catch any confusing instructions and ensure everything flows smoothly. So a staff member with a student, I mean, I was usually that guinea pig because I was the person setting it up, and then I'd want to see what it looked like from the other side. So a staff member with a student in the district can do it, or you can create a demo student to review the experience from start to finish. Taking this step builds confidence in your setup and helps you provide better support once registration goes live. So we'll take a look right now at what that looks like in JMC Family.
Yep. So you can't overemphasize. Set it up and run through it. Either, if, as you know, I say, is find somebody. This is my canned comment that I tell people. Find, if a parent or a guardian in the office, run through and set it up with them. If you or you can set up a fake family. They can do that as well. That's demo there, I think. DEMO, is that right? Yeah. And do it a couple times, right? Make sure they understand it. Now, then what I do is I tell folks, have a teacher go through it who doesn't work in the office, and even sit next to them and see if they have any questions. Just tell them, go through it. If you have a question, let me know, because you want that, again, 95% of families to go through and not have any questions. They can answer it themselves. And then what I always say is, Rachel, you probably heard me say this before you send it out to everybody, send it to your crankiest two parents, the ones that complain about everything. Say, hey, we'd love your feedback, even though maybe you don't want their feedback. And ask them to go through it, right? And tell you all the things that are wrong with it. But that way you're getting multiple folks there, because the only problem I see when people run through it, just like we're going to do now, is if you're a proficient JMC user at your school, you make assumptions about what people understand. It's just like on the farm. I assume when people go, I was telling you, right? Maybe I just didn't tell you, Rachel, but we had 400 students come last year. And I assumed before they came, all 400 would know how to dig a hole with a shovel. Some students don't, right? It's the same thing. Is our questions worded in a way that makes sense to most of the people? And by having other folks go through it besides yourself, it can be helpful. So Rachel, walk us through it and show us kind of what the things are. And I'll just add my comments as usual.
Absolutely. So the first thing to note is you've got that district message, and you can change this at any time during the year. It's not just used for online registration, but at this time of year when you're rolling it out, give parents the tools they need to be successful, so they can click here to learn more. You can add some of those resources that JMC provides to help families walk through this process. But I'm going to click here on register for 25-26. And then you can see parents also have a dashboard that they use to work through the online registration process. So I'm going to hit start or continue the process. And here's those welcome instructions that you set up on the office side. So, read through those. Does that capture everything that you want your families to do as they work their way through this? One thing that I always tried to put in here, just to prepare families, was, hey, parents of preschoolers, you need to enter 3 emergency contacts, because that's what we needed for our licensure. So making sure that parents had the information at their fingertips that they needed, rather than I've started registration, now I got to go find the phone number for 3 different contacts. So giving them those tools up front to be successful as they work through this. All right, so next step, after the instructions, you'll review your contact information. If you had an address change or phone number change, or maybe we just had a typo in the system, parents have the option here to update any of that information. And then you get the first student in your family, and you would have that information there too. And you'll see when it comes to student information, a lot of it isn't changeable, because you don't want parents changing legal names for their students without if it shouldn't be changed. So some things are changeable, some things are not, they're just viewable. And then as we continue, next we get those custom field questions. So all the questions that you enabled for this year's online registration will show up here, and you can see this asterisk. This is one then that would be required. So families couldn't move past this page if those weren't filled out. But like Paul was saying, if you set your questions up to be year independent, it's just going to follow the student from year to year. It doesn't mean that parents can't go in and change the answer if something's changed, but it keeps them from having to answer every question for every student in their family. Sorry, Paul.
Absolutely. I was just agreeing. Yep.
Yeah. And then you have your emergency contacts for that particular student. You've got this drop down so you can look at both of them or add another one if you wanted to. And then there's those health fields that we set up. And then it goes through the next student. So I'm just gonna do a little bit of fast clicking here because we've looked at all of those pieces, but I want to get to, go ahead, Paul.
Yep. No, keep going. I said get to the end there. I want to say, and we'll get back to it in a moment. The next thing I'll say, probably my second biggest tidbit, is you have to empower families to own the dashboard. We're going to get back there in just a moment, right? And this is the reason why, as we go to the downloadable, we'll get to the downloadable content here, which is if you want people to just be able to download things. So instead of people signing a form that says, we have read and agreed to everything in the student handbook, what you do is you ask them a yes, no question. Do you agree to everything in the student handbook? And then you put, parentheses, the student handbook will be able to be downloaded later in this registration process, and boom, they're right here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So then they hit next. Is that all right, Rachel? Is that good on that?
Yep. Yep.
They can add a new student. A lot of people don't allow for adding a new student. I just want to say that during this process, because people can end up adding students that are already in there. So that's a feature you can turn on and off in the office.
Mm-hmm. And we go into that in some depth in those earlier webinars that we were talking about on the training channel. So if you have questions about that, I would point you there. And then you have this comment for the office. So this is another thing where parents just have an opportunity to share any information that they might want to share about their students. If there was any change in the household, maybe parents got divorced, or maybe they moved, or anything like that, they can share that with the office right here. And then once they hit finish, they get a little pop-up saying that it has been, well, this one is, it is complete, but not everybody got an email because we didn't have an email address for all of the parents. But you'll see, parents will see here that it's complete. Email was sent to these particular parents. But then you also have this finish message, which is really helpful. So if there's anything else you need parents to do, if you want to remind them of an open house coming up, anything like that, you can put here in those finished instructions, and then, remember to sign your forms. So I'm going to click OK so we can go back to that dashboard, because I know Paul wanted to talk about some things here.
Yeah, we get a lot of feedback on, like, what does it mean to be complete? What does it mean to finish, and so on and so forth. And we've talked a lot about it. We've taken a lot of feedback. It's a challenging thing. So because everybody has different requirements. Some people do free and reduced forms. There's no way to know if a family is required to do free and reduced forms. In fact, nobody's required to do free and reduced forms. We also, we have on there, do they have to pay a lunch deposit? Do they have to pay a fee or something like that? In Minnesota, all meals are free. So very few people have to make a lunch deposit. So the idea of being finished is a challenge. And we're working on always making it better, and improving the language. But it's a challenge, right? Because people have different things they need to do. So it goes back to my original comment, tidbit number 2, which is tell folks, empower them to say, own the dashboard. Everything you need to do is on here. Go through the process, click on each item, make sure they're all done to the best of your ability. And that's how families will do that. We can't just automatically take people to the free and reduced form, or take people automatically to pay a lunch deposit. Because even if they have a negative balance, if a family is free and they have a negative balance of 20 cents from last year, doesn't mean you're requiring them to pay that 20 cents, right? So that's where, again, empower them to come here and say, if you've got forms to sign, it's going to tell you 2 of 5 or 3 of 5. I can't quite read it. They'll click on that. And that's where you see schools that are super successful, by empowering them to do those particular things there. Does that make sense to you, Rachel?
Any thoughts? Absolutely. No, I don't think so. Yeah, parents just have to take charge of it and do the things that make the most sense to them. One thing that I do really like here is that you have those downloadable links, and these can stay available throughout the year so that, if a family does need to go back and take a look at the handbook, maybe something came up and they're like, oh, what did that say? They're still here. So it's something that families can go back to throughout the year. It's not only at this back to school registration time.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing to note is that, I asked many people, when you sent paper packets home, what percentage of people filled out all of the paper packets correctly? And many schools say very, very low, right? So it's a challenge, and we're making that challenge easier. And I think the other thing to know is that if you can empower 95% of your families to do 95% of the work here, that allows you to have more time to spend with the 5% of families that struggle with the process for a variety of reasons and that need some extra love. That's what I love about this more. This is probably tidbit number 3 I would share with you is this. It allows those families who can self-serve to self-serve. So those families that need some extra love, you can spend more time with. And that starts here at the dashboard.
Mm-hmm. And I would say too, when we moved to online registration, we actually saw an uptick in families that would fill out the free and reduced form because there wasn't any stigma attached with it. I have to fill it out and bring it in and hand it off to someone. Giving families the availability to fill that out online was really helpful for our school.
Great.
All right. And I don't see any questions, so we'll move into this next piece here, talking about revisiting your online registration messaging. And we kind of touched on that a little bit, so we'll kind of breeze through this. But after you test run online registration as a family, it's a good idea to revisit your district login message with fresh eyes. Seeing the process from a family's perspective can highlight areas where your initial instructions may be unclear or missing key details. Updating your message to reflect what families need to know up front, like required forms, helpful tips, or who to contact with questions, can set the tone for a smooth and confident registration experience.
I think the thing I'd add here, I like colors.
Yep.
I like keeping it simple, right? Welcome.
Mm-hmm.
We're so glad to have you. We have a new principal this year. Make sure to stay high. And now it's time to fill out your registration. It just keep it simple, but the colors are nice to draw people to that. And you can use that, again, that district message all year long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then equally important are those finish instructions. So clear finish instructions are the key to helping families successfully complete online registration. A strong closing message confirms they've reached the end, outlines next steps like paying fees or submitting signed forms, and lets them know the registration has been received. This final touch minimizes confusion, reduces follow-up questions, and reassures families that their back to school tasks are done. And like Paul was saying, it can be a little bit confusing of what is finished, but if you have some clear instructions there on these finish instructions, that just will help eliminate some of that confusion.
And so, a popular one would be, and I think that, you can go ahead and take a live look there, is that I think what to say, you have, by clicking finish, you have finished the, one part of this registration process. If you have a lunch deposit, click, okay, if you have like those things, right? So it sets them up for success, because the other thing I'll say is that if a family doesn't have to sign any forms, which is very common in schools, a family does not have to pay any fees, very common. A family does not have to do a lunch deposit and doesn't have to do a free and reduced form, which is less common, but very common. They are finished when they're done with that part of the process there. So that's why, again, think about, what do we want to tell folks so that they can be empowered to get back to where they need to be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. So again, I'm at JMC Family, online registration, setup configuration options. And then this time we're at the district level. So you've got those start instructions. That's what families will see on this page. That's those start instructions. And then you have your finish instructions, which they see at the end of that online registration. But you've also got that district login message that we were talking about. So under JMC Family, district login message, and I've got to go to the district level to look at it. So this is where you can give that initial information about online registration, because this is what families will see when they first log in. So put something there that gets them excited, reminds them that they have to go in and register for the upcoming school year. So this is just a really powerful tool that you can use for registration and throughout the year.
Absolutely.
All right. And, oh, Paul, I've got a question for you, but I think we've already kind of answered this. But what is the best way to teach families how to use online registration?
use our Help Center and YouTube training channel for family-focused resources you can share. So why don't you go to the Help Center and you can show some things. I want to add to that as well that, again, those 95% of folks, you can send them an article from the Help Center or maybe something from YouTube, our YouTube channel if you want to. But again, those 5% that need help, and some schools it might be 10% or 15%. Of course, every school is different. I think what's important to note is that have a computer in the office that people can come in and sit down at the computer, a computer there, and just get some help as they go. Or you might even still have an online registration, or where the computer lab is open and you have your Spanish interpreter there, or your Hmong interpreter there, or your Somali interpreter there, right, to help families through. So just think about, okay, Paul and Rachel and crew said 5% of our families are going to need some hand holding. How do we make it easier? Do we want them to come in one by one over the summer and just trickle in? Great, have a computer in the office. Nope, we want to have a day when people can come in and need some extra love and talk to a person. Great, we're going to have some office staff ready to work with those folks. So you're teaching the folks with the resources we have, which Rachel's going to show you, and then also staying up for success for those folks that maybe an article is not going to help connect the dots for them.
Right. Yeah, so I was just went to our Help Center, typed in online registration. We've got this article here, introduce online registration to your families, and you can see it's set up. You can copy this and paste it into an email, send that out to families so that they know it's time to register. You can give some instructions here, some of the things that you want them to do. So you can customize this, but we have the framework for you to help introduce this to your families, sorry. And then also at our training channel, just like we have resources for office users, you can come in here and type in online registration for families, and you can find the video that is produced with families as the intended audience, and you can include that in the email as well, so that you're giving them a couple different ways to access instructions for completing that online registration. And like Paul said, you can help right there in the office. And as we look at the progress dashboard, I think I have something that I can add there as well. Yeah, great. So I don't see any questions on that, so we'll keep moving here. All right, and now we'll talk about ways to set up your staff for successful online registration. So choosing the right time to roll out. Turning on online registration at the right time ensures families can access and complete the process when your school is fully prepared to receive their information. Activate registration only after customizing your forms, fields, and messaging to reflect your current needs. This thoughtful timing helps prevent incomplete submissions and provides a smooth, accurate registration experience for both families and school staff. So that's important. I know I've been on the front office side where all of a sudden things are coming in. I'm like, oh, we weren't quite ready for that. People are on vacation right now. We're not ready to start, accepting all of these reviewing all these registrations. So having that conversation with your office staff, what's going to be the best time to do this? When are we ready to start working with this information?
Absolutely. And you can go to the next slide if you want to, Rachel. Okay. You can go ahead and look at that. I'll add that I agree with you. What do we want to be best? I also, though, say that, people getting the idea, like, we did paper registration starting, August 3rd. Let's open online registration August 3rd. I would say open your online registration June 15th. Mm-hmm. Just let people start getting in there and doing it. I kind of have this little theory that if you open it over the summer, especially in July, when people are like, oh, I wish I wasn't at work, that when you send it out, you get a lot of folks who are like, well, I don't really want to do my work job, my paying job right now, but look at the school's requiring me to do this online registration. You get a lot of folks, I think, who will do it because they're at work and they don't feel like they're cheating work because they're actually doing something for their family, Not saying that's right or wrong, but I think open up earlier and giving people a longer opportunity.
Yeah. All right. Just to reiterate too, how I got to that help center, you have this little widget here in the bottom corner. Right here, if you click visit help center, that'll take you to the help center to search for those articles. Kind of breezed past that before, so I apologize for that. But to turn on your registration, again, you're at JMC Family, online registration, setup and configuration options. And now I've got to log into my building. All right, so here we go. Wait, I'm in the wrong spot here. Family permission. So under the district level, family permissions. So here, allow parents or contacts to use all the registration control. So that makes them all visible in JMC Family. And then the next one here is turn on the registration process. So once this is checked, they can start filling it out. But when this is checked, then families can view the information that's there. I think I've got that right. Am I right on that, Paul?
Yes.
Okay. So that's where those
Yep.
controls live.
That's right. And so sometimes people, and actually I was just looking at that allow parents to registration controls and turn on registration process. I kind of went in there, and sometimes what I'll do is I'll go through or I'll open up the family portal, and I'll just uncheck and check those boxes a little bit, just to and refresh the family portal on the JMC Family side, just to kind of see what that does, because we're putting those things based on what people are looking for, because people are they are appropriately concerned about what families can see over the summer, especially like with student schedules and things like that. And when do they want to get into the registration process? So that those check marks are helpful for that. But instead of even messaging tech support and saying like, what does turn on the registration process do? Just, leave them checked, go into the family portal, check it out, uncheck that, refresh it. You're going to see that they can click on that, but they can't actually do anything with it. So it's some very interesting nuances there.
Yeah. That's a great tip, Paul. All right. All right. And we do have a question here about whether parents will receive a message saying that the registration is complete, even though there are still required forms to sign. They will. I mean, they'll get that message saying that they've completed online registration, but I'll show you in this next section here how you can send out messaging for families that still need to sign forms.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And the thing I will say is that the one thing that we added, do you want to go to the sign forms real quick, actually? Because I forgot to mention one thing. Actually, well, no, I'm sorry. It's not going to be on that part, so you can stay there. Is folks can also say that they don't want to sign the form. It's not rejecting, it's declining. They can decline to sign a form. So that's the thing that we run into, is that, you say people have to sign forms, but people can choose not to sign forms. So that's where it just gets tricky. Here in Minnesota, there's a new thing that I don't quote me on this, but a local school district said that families need to sign forms because of Google iPad or something. I don't remember exactly what it is. But and if that school is part of this, I apologize. I was listening. But we were talking about a lot of different things that families can say, I'm not going to use that form. I'm not going to sign it, or I'm going to decline it. So that's where we're still figuring out the nuances of that. But they're correct. They will say it's complete, and that's where that messaging is helpful. So go ahead, Rach.
Okay, so we've got the registration dashboard, and this is where I'll show you how you can use that to communicate with those parents that still have forms to sign or whatever. The progress dashboard in JMC Office helps you easily manage family registration submissions by giving you a clear overview of who has started, who has completed, and who still needs to register. You can filter by grade level, student, or status to track progress and follow up with families as needed. This centralized view helps your team stay organized and ensures no student slips through the cracks during back to school registration. And then my favorite thing are the quick links here that are next to the progress dashboard. The quick links next to the progress dashboard give you powerful communication tools right at your fingertips. With just a click, you can email families who have completed registration, follow up with those who haven't started or finished, or send targeted messages based on your filtered results. These built-in options make it easy to keep everyone informed and keep registration moving forward. So we'll take a look here at the registration dashboard, or the progress dashboard. Okay, so same area, we're here in JMC Family. We got coming on down to progress. I'm going to actually collapse that. So it is under online registration and then progress dashboard.
So this is one of the coolest things we have.
Yes,
in JMC,
I love this tool. Yeah, so right here, this kind of answers that question. So by forms, you can filter by families who are not all done with their forms. And then you can come right over here and you can email those filtered families and remind them that they need to fill out their forms. So they'll get an email saying that the registration part is complete, but this is where you can follow up with families who are maybe a little bit slower to get the signed forms finished. But you can filter by grade, by family, balance This is one that we were always looking at when we were doing online registration, so I could see the families who were finished and I could see the families who were not finished. So there's a lot of ways that you can view what's going on with the registration process here in the progress dashboard. And then you can view families who have signed their forms. So if you come to this form signatures here, you can select the form that you're looking at and then see the signatures here. So the other thing that you can do, like Paul said, families can choose to decline to sign a form. So when they get on the signature page, they just click decline. But if you have a family who maybe struggles with technology and you catch them on that back to school night, you can get a paper signature and you can record that paper signature as well. But the progress dashboard was something that we could use when we would do our back to school night, because then we would know which families hadn't filled out or finished their registration. And so we could have a computer or two on hand and grab those families as they come in and say, hey, looks like you haven't finished your registration. We've got a computer right here. Let me help you get it going. Anything
Absolutely.
else that you want to add, Paul, about the registry or the progress dashboard?
And I apologize because I lost you for just a second. Did you go through that email, the filtered families?
Yes. Yep.
Gotcha. I just wanted to make sure there as well. And then also, you can click on those columns as well to find people who have or have not, like, lunch balances and stuff like that. Did you cover that as well?
Yes.
Great.
Yep.
Just wanted to make sure. So just had to pause. Not even that, but if I go to like the family lunch balance there and I click on that in the columns of there, that will also sort it by that, which
Yep.
is a cool way. There's no balances in there, but that's
Yep.
great.
Yeah. And another thing that's really cool is you've got this little arrow here next to a family. If you expand that, then you can see more details for that particular family. So
Absolutely.
that's a really helpful tool as well.
I guess this would be I think it's my fourth tidbit. Just like we ask families to own the dashboard, we would ask schools to own this dashboard. Play with it, get in there, do some filtering, look around, and use that email filtered families to say, hey, this is an important thing for you. Now, also, if you click on that email filtered families, and again, I apologize if I'm repeating, but this is actually one of the biggest tips that I have found is that you can go. So if you go to the JMC family portal, back to that tab with the family portal, you can go to the register for 25-26 school year, and the registration. There we go, and click on sign forms, for example. You can actually copy that link. Did you go through this part already?
No, I haven't. No.
Yes. You can copy this link and you can go back down to that progress dashboard in JMC, and let's actually go ahead and hit cancel there. Hit cancel. This is hot tip number 5. On the left side, go to forms where it says all, the top left of the drop down menus, and change it to not all done. This means that somebody has not signed all the forms. Now, email filtered families means it's only going to show people who have not signed all their forms. And you can, in the message, you can paste that link in, say, copy and paste the link below into your web browser. I think it actually activates its swipe links. You might even be able to say, click the link below. I think it will do that. Yeah. And what that does is it will, when they log in, it will make them log in. It will automatically take them to the sign forms page. You're removing the step of having them log in. Click on register for 25-26. Click on sign forms. It will take them right to the sign forms page. So this is hot tip number 6. Send them the link exactly where you want that filtered family to go so that they can check that out.
Yeah. Great point. All right.
Great. So that way I repeat all the things that you said there. We also, did we go, are we at the end of our slides, or do we have more? Because we also didn't talk about the online free and reduced forms. Do you want to just run through that real quick? Because someone sent in a question, does anyone include the McKinney-Vento questions or custom questions, or does that require an actual signature? I don't know the answer to that question. If somebody else knows the answer, they can put that in there. I've seen the McKinney-Vento stuff. I wondered, is that part of the free and reduced application?
I feel like it might be. I feel like it might be.
Well, let's run through on the family side. Yep. There we go. Now, the application for educational benefits, one of the best tools as well here for 2 reasons. Number one, you don't have to collect a paper copy. And number 2, it basically forces families to answer all the questions that they're supposed to answer. They can skip things, of course, if they choose to. But the feds like this because we know that people don't fill out paper forms correctly. I've seen them all. It's how many kids are in your family and how much do I earn? And that's it. They're supposed to answer more questions. So let's just run through this real quick and then we can wrap this up there. Okay. Oh, Deb, it's a homeless question. Okay, gotcha. I couldn't remember we had seen it there. So the question still stands. The McKinney-Vento question, somebody else puts that in their registration, then they can sure type that in there as well. But the beauty about the custom field questions or a signature, of course, you would do that there. So go ahead, Rachel.
I think I'm going to have to fill out something to move ahead.
Yep. You have to. So just put in. Yep. There we go. Yep. Click next. Yep. And then I'll just talk through it and you can click. Is that what this does?
Yep.
Is this verifying which kids you have in the household? This is all done by the feds and the USDA. So we just put in what they require us to do. So go ahead and click next there. Then here's where they can say if they have SNAP, FIP, or FDPIR, what they do is if you go ahead and click SNAP there, it actually asks for the number. And if they put it in, it will then take them to the end of the process. They don't need to do anything more. They have supplemental nutrition assistance. We're not going to do that here, but that's a cool thing about the process. They don't have to waste time putting that in. Go ahead and click next there.
Here it is. Yep.
There it is. So in here it says your children can also qualify for free meals if any of these apply. Foster care, McKinney-Vento, migrant education, runaway. And this actually is specific to Iowa, just so you know, so it might be different in Minnesota. That's why you should go through the process and check it out. And there is that at least one student lives in the you under court-ordered foster care arrangement, receives assistance under the McKinney-Vento Homeless Act, participates, and so on and so forth. So the cool thing is it's in there already. Okay, we'll go ahead and click next. They can add a child in. So if they have a kid that's not in the school, like birth through age 4, you can add that in there. Go ahead and click next. Then here's another thing there. If they have other sources of income, they can say, put in there a child source of income. Go ahead and click next. And this is where they can add in a new adult. So if grandma or grandpa lives with you, they actually count as the number of people who live in your household. So you can add the adult in there. Go ahead and click next. And this is where they put in their salary and their job in it. And there's lots of different things here. Most people go under job to total salary and wages. So go ahead and put that in there. Put in, $20,000. And we're going to just do that or whatever you want, 20,000, and then select the frequency of yearly. Yep. And they click next. And then they put in 1234 for a social security number. They do have to put in the last 4 digits there, unless they have no social security number. Click next. Contact information. Go ahead and click next. I think that there we go. Then it asks if they want to include racial ethnic information. We're just going to leave that unchecked and click next. They sure can do that, of course. And then it gets to the end with the legal statements, right? And they can go through if that Hawkeye is an Iowa only thing. They can scroll down to the bottom, go ahead and click next. That's the stuff that's at the bottom of the paper form. And here's where they review it. This is their chance to go back and change things if they want to. And they sign it at the bottom. You go ahead and put your signature in there if you want to. Yep, that's right. You have to certify if the information is correct. Put it in there. And they click submit. So it's a powerful thing. Does it take families longer than paper? Absolutely. And the reason is, again, because they're actually being pretty much forced to fill out the things that the feds want them to fill out in a paper form. So that's that.
All right. Thanks, Paul. Okay. And I think we're ready to start wrapping it up. So if anyone has any other questions, go ahead and put them in that Q&A feature, and then we'll just make sure we double check that before we sign off. So we're going to wrap up with some JMC news and upcoming events. When your communication plan is tailored to the goals of both your district and community members, you deepen those connections. So where do you start? Right here with this engaging workshop. You'll learn how to use JMC's powerful communication tools, including Community Messenger, to target your audiences with the right messaging at the right time in order to truly connect with your family. So I believe Jake is going to be leading that session at our summer conference. If you'd like to sign up for this communication strategy workshop, you can click on the link to register in Minnesota or in Iowa. And you can find your inner lollipop leader with our guest speaker, Tara Sosby. She's going to be at both Iowa and Minnesota. The smallest act of kindness, support, or encouragement can have a profound effect on someone's life, even if you don't know it at the time. What we just described is the lollipop moment, and it's a core concept of lollipop leadership. Let speaker, author, and advocate of empathy, Tara Sosby, challenge you to discover the lollipop leader in yourself and just how sweet that can be. So again, that'll be another session at our summer conference. You can register to attend in Minnesota or in Iowa.
That's next week, and we are excited about it.
Yes, absolutely. And get hands-on help crafting the perfect JMC Family Portal message. What's the first thing families see when starting online registration? We've just been covering this. It's your JMC Family Portal message. Keywords here, or keywords there, yours, meaning you can customize it with instructions, key reminders, and even links to resources like free and reduced meal applications, setting the tone for a positive year. If you'd like to leave for the summer conference with the ideal JMC Family Portal message ready to go, then this workshop is for you. So again, you can register for Iowa or Minnesota, and like Paul said, it's next week on Wednesday in Minnesota, Friday in Iowa. And you can learn the basics of state reporting or level up your existing skills. If you enter data into JMC on a daily basis, then you play a role in state reporting and district funding. For the scoop on how it all connects, join a breakout session on the importance of timely data submissions. Consider yourself an expert data wrangler. We have a slew of advanced state reporting sessions for you, covering deadlines and new data regulations presented by the Department of Education and our experts. So in Minnesota, we'll have some reps from the MDE, and same within Iowa. All right, so we're kind of to the end here. Like I promised, we'll take a look. I think we have another question here.
Yeah, Michelle's got a great question. I'm sorry. She said, I'm sorry. Never have to apologize, Michelle. Great questions. Where do I find out who submitted answers to the custom field questions? Rachel, you want me to answer that, or do you want to answer that?
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
That is actually under student lists. Well, there's two spots. There's a way to query, which is probably what she's asking for, but there's a way to look up an individual student. So first we'll go to the View Student Data screen. On the View Student Data screen, you'll see there's a custom, custom tab, and that has everything for a child. You can also edit and change things there as well. If you want to see who submitted answers to the custom field question, so we've got one right here. May your student have internet access? We've got a yes there. We can actually go attendance, student lists, and again, if you feel good about your process here, you can probably sign off this webinar. If you want to keep listening along or ask a question, now's a great time. So what we're going to do is we're going to go under common, and let's just choose name. Let's just choose name here. And great. And then you can close that and go to custom fields. These can be quite long in here. There we go. And we're going to choose, it's just a little small. It's the internet. May your student have internet. The second one down. It's the great one. Yep. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to preview this, and this is going to show me what everybody's done. Now at this point, if I want to, I could export this. Wait for it to come up here. And I could export it and play with it in a spreadsheet. But maybe you're saying, you know what, I don't want to export it and play with it in a spreadsheet. I want JMC to do the work. So you see we've got some kids in there, yes and no. So we play with this. So right now it actually should be a yes, no question. Just if anybody has some constructive criticism, those should only be Y's and N's. But sometimes we do it for more training. People will say, let's make it a yes, no question, or let's make it a field where they can fill it out. Right now it's a field where they can fill it out. So now let's say I want JMC to sort it. So on the right-hand side, number 2, it says, who do you want in the report? We want everybody. You could actually go down to 9th graders if you want. We're not going to do that here, but you sure could. But the last one, step 3, is how do you want the report sorted? You click on name, because I don't want it reported by name. And I want to edit that. And I'm going to go to custom fields again, and we're going to choose that same custom field. And choose the second one. May your student have internet access? Yep. And click OK. And now you're going to preview that. There we go. And it's actually going to go to the bottom, all the kids at the bottom. So scroll down. This is going to be unique. Mostly, most of your people are going to answer those questions, especially if you require them. But here's all the yeses and nos down there as well. So it actually would put all the yeses together, all the nos together, and all the blanks would be at the top. So this is the way that we do this there, because this is again where if you put in there for custom fields or health custom fields, I want to know all the families who said no to internet access. And I'm going to make a list and email that out to parents. Or I'm going to make a letter and make a list, email it out to teachers. Or make a letter and email it to their parents. Or I'm going to double check, did you answer this correctly? but that's a great way to get the information you want and be able to sort it right away. If you really wanted to be kind of, I was going to use the word fancy, but that's not a great word. I don't even know what the adjective is. If you want to, you can actually choose all the custom fields and put it export to a spreadsheet, one spreadsheet, and then you could just sort till your heart's content and know which people's side said yes, said no, and so on and so forth there as well. Great. Well, let's hang on for another minute or another 30 seconds, Rachel, and see if else has any questions. But this was a great time. I think that um, the key here, I think people understand this, the key is up front. You're putting the work in up front. And this kind of be my last little story. And if somebody has a question, they can type it in. But I've been to schools where they would hire teachers to come back and counselors to come back on August 1st and work through, they'd be there 6 hours. Most people are cranky. Everybody just wants to get it done. Why do we have to fill all these things out? And so if you took and you had, I'm not kidding, I've been to schools, larger school districts where they have, 12 people working, 6 hours each, and they're kind of cranky. Maybe you feed them dinner, whatever. That's 72 hours. It probably ends up being 100 hours. Then you've got to process all that information. A person going through here, or two people going and putting in 4 hours, which I think a school can get this set up in 4 hours with two people. Set up, run through a couple times, maybe another hour sending it to people, say 10 hours total. It's going to save your school an absolute ton of time. Michelle said, I appreciate you reviewing this. Well, thanks, Michelle. I couldn't see the responses and realized that I need to change the data type. I'll reach out to support to assist, and that can change as I'm not able to do so. Yep. So reach out to support Rachel or Michelle, and they'll help you. So Rachel, bring us home.
All right. Well, on behalf of myself and Paul, thank you so much for attending this webinar, and thank you for choosing JMC.